No worries. All right, we are live at City Hall, and we did a couple of videos the other day trying to contact council members. And how did you hear that I was trying to contact you guys? I got Tawni here. Sorry.
Somebody said that you were trying to contact us, and I know that we got a new phone system.
Yeah.
So, a lot of our I learned from our workshop. We had a workshop on Wednesday concerning our budget procedures.
Okay.
And I learned that somebody said it, and then I learned that some of our city council people don't have their new voicemail set up.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to our IT department and to make sure that I get the instructions for everybody.
Yeah.
Because we just got the new phone system.
Okay.
And
when was that?
It's in the last month, I think, or maybe so. I don't remember. But anyway, some of our council people are a little old school.
Sure.
So anyway, I reached out. I got an email this morning that they're going to be sending me the information and the sheet, and then I'll forward that to all the council members so everybody gets their voicemail set up.
Right.
Although I know I have my cell phone listed on the website so that people, generally it's better if people contact me on my cell phone. So
okay.
I'm sure when I do get mine set up, I will put that on the recording.
Okay. I think Tim has that on his.
Yeah.
And I think Jim might have it on his.
Yeah.
A few of them had it. We called all the numbers just to see, because we talked last Wednesday.
Right.
At the safety committee meeting, and addressed like, hey, I don't know if you guys are getting our messages, and you guys are like, no, we haven't been getting anything.
Yeah,
so it's an issue that's been going on for a bit.
So
Okay. So you're aware of it.
You're
that's trying to get IT to work on it.
I'm trying to get IT to work on it, so
that's
we can get that
a
all
concern
cleaned up.
That's been raised by the public. We need to be able to contact you guys, right? So that's great.
And we're always available by email too.
By email, okay. So there's emails listed on the website.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then one of the other issues that we're working on informing Eric, the mayor of, is the website. The city council website isn't fully up to date. So the roster for the committees is still on the PDF. It's 2017, so it's last year's. But there's even one more that's further back from 2012. So if you search for the committee members roster for Aberdeen, you can still pull up a page from 2012. So it had
weird. Must be just
John Smith on there as one of them, so it's an older page, but it's discoverable. I don't think it's linked to the website, but it's still an active page on the internet that people can find. So something again for IT to follow up on, maybe try to update the page, make sure it's relevant or pertinent information. So thank you for reaching back out to us to come talk. And is it Andrews?
It's Andrews.
Andrews. Okay, so Tawni Andrews, the city council president, and just had some questions regarding these two ordinances that, from my understanding, passed yesterday.
Right. He did sign them.
Okay, so Mayor Larson signed it. Mm-hmm. And we got an email this morning from him saying that they go into effect when the Daily World publishes it.
Yes, correct.
Is that, you think, going to happen tomorrow?
It's going to happen. She was expecting it to happen any day.
Okay, so they're ready to release it. It's hot on the presses tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. I looked for it this morning.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was coming to talk to you.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it yet.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they won't get it up sometime today. I just don't. I don't know.
So it can be posted to the page, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be in the physical paper.
No. Okay. It's just a part of our procedure. It's just part of the procedure.
Right. Yeah. That's what Patrice, the legal counsel, told me yesterday. It has to go through you guys, the council approval, and the mayor approval, and then it gets published, and then it becomes effective. Okay.
And it becomes effective.
Cool.
It depends. Some, like with anything, some ordinances, we could write them with specific dates.
Yeah.
But most of the time we don't. They just go into effect in this manner.
Through that procedure. Cool. Yeah, and that's part of what we're doing with this page, the Blind Justice page, is to inform the public, the proceedings, how things go here at City Hall. And one of the first meetings I attended here at City Hall, and I don't remember exactly when it was, probably months ago, when there was the tax increase was on the agenda. Yeah. And that one kind of zinged by because nobody spoke, and I didn't do my homework before going to the meeting to know like how the proceeding was. So when it was public hearing, it was like open and closed before. I was like, where's the podium? Like I don't even know where the podium is. So it was a learning experience, but we're trying to share that learning experience with the community. Like, hey, for everything that you guys passed, there's 7 chances at city council meetings for a member of the public to speak. Right? There's the the comment on agenda items at the beginning, and then there's an open comment at the end of the meeting. So that's 2, and there's 3 readings. So 2 times 3 is 6, and then on the second reading, there's a hearing, right?
Sometimes items will come to the city council as a report.
Yeah.
The week before the first reading.
Okay.
I mean, so the meeting before. Sorry, not the week. It's sometimes 2 or 3 weeks. But the meeting before, sometimes it starts as a report.
Okay.
So I mean, so if a person like paid attention to our agendas, they'll see sometimes a report will come about an upcoming thing that we're gonna maybe move to an ordinance level.
Yeah.
Or
Okay. And I know you're on lunch break, so let me know when your time, how much time we have. But so with the agendas, like you mentioned, where is the best place that the public can get access to the agenda?
So they are posted on the website.
Okay.
I've been trying to because I have a Facebook page for my city
council Facebook page. Okay.
Facebook page. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to post it on there as well, so people can see.
Excellent.
And I just put the agenda. There is a full packet with all the copies. If somebody wanted that, they could email me and ask me for it, and I could forward it, or they could contact the city if they want to see the full. It's a lot of pages. Like last one I think was like 67 pages because we had the parks department thing that went in there, and that was a big report. So it's large, but I try to at least put the agenda on there. And like in this case, I posted the 2 ordinances on that page. On the page,
great. Okay, so then is there a link for that page on the website for the Facebook page?
No.
Okay. Can we maybe try to get that with the IT?
We do have a city Facebook page. I've asked them to put the agenda on. I haven't seen where they started to do that yet. I can push that a little.
Yeah, we're trying to make things more accessible for everybody. And what about physical copies? If somebody came into City Hall,
they could get a physical copy of the agenda. The packet, they'd probably just have to request.
Okay. How much notice do they need for that, do you think?
I don't know how long it would take Sandra. I don't think it would take her that long.
Yeah.
She just has to print it off, basically. Because she has it electronically, because that's how it goes out to us.
Okay. And I have no idea if you're even on camera. Okay, cool. So I'm just trying to get audio, really. But, because of my visual impairment, I've asked the city one of the first times with trying to get agendas if you guys have anything for accessibility, whether it be Braille or whether you have audio options, and the answer I got was not at that time. That was a few months ago. So are you guys looked at that at all, or is that even on the radar?
No, I didn't hear that.
No? Okay. So
but I'll put it on my radar. Okay,
sure. So that's the other part. We're trying to figure out how to make it accessible for everybody, regardless of your limitations. Right. And so part of like the technology when I was setting up today, I was telling you like my use voice commands, and I pointed at me. So I have this Bluetooth headset, which is really nifty, which is a bone conducting, so I can still hear ambient noise, traffic. I don't get run over. I can talk with people, and I can hear phone calls. I can hear what's going on in that. Good afternoon.
Do you have a lighter?
I do not. I apologize. Yeah, no worries. So and then Apple has built-in accessibility for visually impaired. VoiceOver is a great one, and there's a few other things that read text pretty good. Pictures are still a tricky one. So when things are in picture form, trying to get something that can read, like there's text of a picture. I'm still working on finding a good option for that. So there's stuff on the market, open market, that people can use if you are visually impaired. But we're also trying to make it also, that the city has something available in case they don't have all the doohickeys that I have.
As far as during our city council meetings, we have a headset if somebody's hearing impaired.
Okay.
That will help amplify it.
Yeah.
So I know we have that option. As far as anything in Braille, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's tricky. Braille's been going away, and I don't know if you're aware of this. So this part of what we like to do with the page is inform people of different things. Braille has kind of been being phased out. So with the VA, they're not even looking at Braille and teaching Braille and getting people, but there is Hadley School for the Blind, a little plug for them, that they do free Braille classes for anyone that wants to learn Braille. So they're still trying to keep that
alive.
They keep that alive because of the way technology is going. The argument is Braille is becoming obsolete, but
because the phones will read
things will read things to you automatically. Your computer can read things to you automatically. But that argument has been made that case has been made for hard copy books as well. You know, people have said, oh, with, you know, Kindle and all this stuff, audiobooks, hard copy books are going to die. And well, this hasn't happened, you know, because people still want that tactile response. So same thing. And I think just even on a independent level, to be able to read something for yourself rather than have it read to you, even if it's a robot or even a lifelike robot that reads nowadays. So, okay, back to some of the questions with these ordinances. When you were doing the research, and I know I asked you this before about the Constitution, because you guys swore an oath to the Constitution, uphold in the Constitution. So when you did your research,
I brought some of it with me.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to share what kind of constitutional research you did.
So I did, so there's a lovely website called MRSC.
Okay.
And MRSC stands for, hold on, I got it right here because I printed it out. It's Municipal Research and Services Center.
Okay.
So a lot of cities and municipalities use this website. They have people that they employ that do a ton of research for us. So they had a whole page on these issues for different cities. And when it came to, hold on, I got it right here, the loitering and sit-lie laws, which is, we'll talk about that one first. I also have one on the solicitation or panhandling.
Okay.
And I kind of earmarked, I actually watched her video from this morning just because I was kind of curious. I would just want to, you know, I'm like, where's his frame of thought today?
Sure.
You know, and what might you ask me, I came prepared.
Okay.
So generally, loitering ordinances are found to violate constitutional rights.
Right.
You're right there.
Okay.
However, banning loitering as it relates to other illegal activities such as drug activity and prostitution has been upheld.
Okay.
Additionally, restrictions on the use of public right-of-ways, particularly those restricting individuals from sitting or lying on the sidewalk, have been deemed constitutional by the Ninth Circuit Court.
Okay. And when
it's primarily that specificness.
Okay.
You know, when the research I did is the real vague old-time laws. You know, a lot of people have been making comments about how we already had a lot of these laws in effect.
Right, yeah.
But so many of the laws we already have on the books were very vague.
Okay.
And those are the laws that are really hard to uphold.
Right, right.
But when you get to the more specific ones...
With the specific ones you said with the Ninth Circuit...
it does cite a court. I did
do you
not...
have it?
It says Roulette versus City of Seattle.
Okay, Roulette versus City of Seattle. Is there a date on that at all?
It did not give me a date.
Okay, so that's good information to have. Roulette versus City of Seattle.
Right.
And
it's ROULETTE.
Okay.
I'm just giving that for you.
Great.
Because I'm sure you're probably going to look that up, so I just want to give that to you.
Yeah.
So there are several cities that already had these, and these are the ones I looked at. Like Auburn has one. Bellingham is, they have 2 business districts where they have this law from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
Leavenworth is 8 to 5. The original Marysville one, which was the language I took it from, was 6 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Okay.
I felt, in my personal opinion, it was a little long.
Yeah.
So that's why I proposed 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. because I thought that was a better time frame. And I just kind of looked at the businesses downtown and when they were open and such. And although you know that the amendment was made by a fellow city council person to change it to 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. And that is what we enacted.
Okay.
Olympia had one. They repealed it, then they revised it.
Yeah.
I do not have a copy of theirs right in front of me, but they did reenact it.
All right. So this raises one of the questions I may have posted directly last time we met Wednesday night.
I don't know.
But I kind of touched around it, and that is, do you believe that legality equals constitutionality? And I can rephrase that if you need to.
Yeah, go ahead and rephrase that.
So just because something has been deemed legal in a municipality somewhere, does it not necessarily mean that it's been challenged to the point of the Supreme Court, which is basically their whole job is the Constitution, right? The Supreme Court.
I understand that.
So
but there's also, you know, you also have the other argument to the letter of the law, to the spirit of the law. You know, and, you know, the letter of the law, you know, but the spirit of it, you know, is completely different.
I'm glad you made that point, the letter of law and the spirit of law. So let's speak directly to the sit-lie ordinance here in Aberdeen. The letter of the law, the letter of the ordinance, as it was last worded that I checked out.
I have that with me too.
Oh, you do? Great. So you can verify that I have my information correct. So the letter that I understand from this ordinance is it talks about specifically sitting and lying in the downtown corridor, and then it gives an AMC that outlines that corridor.
Right.
You know, your left and right limits.
It's the Downtown Parking and Business Improvement District.
Right. So that area between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Right.
And then there's some exemptions. And so can you read the exemptions?
Let's see. Sitting or lying down due to a medical emergency.
Okay.
Result of a disability utilizes a wheelchair, walker, or similar device.
Okay.
Operating or patronizing a commercial establishment conducted on a public sidewalk pursuant to a street use permit. Yeah. Participating or attending a parade, festival, performance, rally, demonstration, which is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's see, hold on, I lost it. Meeting or similar event conducted on a public pursuant to a street use.
Okay.
Sitting on a chair or bench,
like
which we're doing now.
Yeah.
Which is supplied by a public agency or private property, or sitting on the public sidewalk within a bus stop zone while waiting for public and private transportation.
Right. And then that includes near the bus stop.
Yes.
Because if it's
if the bench is full,
right.
You want to sit down, they're not going to bother.
Okay, so that's the letter of the law.
Yeah.
Now, the spirit of the law is where we have questions, right?
Okay.
Because it's been raised, one of the signs that we've had out is resting is not a crime, right? And people are confused by that, so I can try to bring some clarification to that. Okay. Because the way the letter of the law is written, if an elderly person walks in from town and goes to Safeway for their groceries, and then starts heading back up the hill and gets tired and stops to sit down on the sidewalk where there's no bench available, they are violating the ordinance according to the letter of the law, because arrest is not a medical emergency. Would you agree that that's how the letter of the law reads?
The letter of the law, yes.
Okay, so now what is the spirit of the law?
Because the spirit of the law to me, and since this is one I came out with, my intent was no, I'm not,
okay.
he or she may need to take a little break. Right. Nobody's going to bother them.
Okay, so so spirit of the law is exactly what you just said, is the intent.
Yeah,
right?
The intent.
So we asked Wednesday night at the safety committee meeting what the intent is, right? What is the vision? What is the goal? What's the intent of these ordinances? So I'll ask the same question again, see if you can...
Fine.
Yeah.
So, since, I don't know, for a while now, if you drive through downtown, you see there are groups of individuals who are sitting there drinking and, congregating and not, I'm trying to think of good verbiage. And it's not, I know a lot of people are focusing on homeless. I will bet that most of them are not homeless.
Okay, but have you done any studies on that?
No, I haven't done any studies. No official data. I don't know.
What about personally?
Personally, I've heard just word of mouth. I haven't asked them.
Okay.
I have not gone down there and asked them.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to if somebody would like me to. I don't have a problem with it. But the appearance that they sit there, they drink, you can tell they're drinking, and being drunk in public is not illegal.
Yeah, in the state,
right. In the state, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
Having an open container is.
Okay.
So a policeman can stop if you have an open container.
Okay.
But the idea is that we want to try to eliminate some of that.
Okay.
And there are people who are probably homeless who are sleeping. Again, it's an assumption because they're sleeping in doorways and such like that.
Right.
So, the appearance again is that we'd like to make it more friendly, that they don't do it during these certain hours.
Yeah.
I understand that right now, currently in our city, we do not have, a sleep center, or
warming shelter,
shelter or whatever. I understand that.
Are you aware of any of the 24-hour access bathrooms downtown?
I am aware of just the porta potty that we put into City Drug.
Across the street. There's the library behind the alley, and then walk down the alley.
Right now, that's the only one. The only one.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, these are all things we're looking at, and we have been talking about them as a city.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we've had these discussions in open council, but I know that the mayor and I have at least talked about it.
Okay,
And-
so you guys have mentioned behavior
Right.
as the intent of
Yes.
these of the specifically that we're talking about the sit live one right now.
Right.
So what behavior, if you can try to articulate what behavior specifically you're trying to eliminate?
I'll use an example
Okay.
that I personally witnessed.
Okay.
I was driving home one evening, and before the owners of the old Reiners building, which is the one you've been sitting next to,
Yeah.
where they built the wooden,
Yeah.
before that was there was a gentleman laying on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, I do not know if he was awake or, he whips out his male appendage.
Okay.
And, and he doesn't get up. He's still laying down and kind of rolls over in peace.
Okay.
So, and that behavior isn't good, and I don't think that behavior is appropriate.
Okay.
And so that is one of those things, that I think, and unfortunately when we have those, our fire department gets these man down calls quite frequently.
Right.
And that's,
To go check to see if somebody is conscious
Yes.
or even breathing, right?
Yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, a lot of times they're just passed out.
Yeah.
And that's, that's taking that fireman or that policeman away from another call because they're responding to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, really, that was my spirit or intent.
Okay. So things like public urination,
Right.
defecation.
Right.
Uh,
And yes, they're already illegal.
Right.
But it's just, I mean, it's hard because, I called 911 when I saw that.
okay.
But by the time the police officer is able to respond to the call,
Yeah.
he's probably done.
Yeah. Right.
And,
So what did you deem was the emergency in that call?
I didn't call the emergency number. I
Oh.
called the non-emergency
The non-emergency.
number.
Okay.
Yes.
And it got dispatched through
Yes.
the 911. Okay.
Yes. So to me, it wasn't an emergency,
Okay.
but I wanted to report it
Okay.
because I feel it's important that we report all acts, even if it's not an emergency. And
Yeah.
that's why I call the non-emergency
Yeah.
number. I have that number programmed in my phone.
Right.
So that I can report things I see, but
Okay.
I don't expect somebody to jump on it right now
Sure.
because, they have more important times. Sometimes they have more important things to deal with.
Yeah. Okay. So then we're talking about spirit of the law, intent,
Uh-huh.
and so you're talking about specific behaviors, and you've admitted that there's already things on the books against all of the
Some of
behaviors you're
them.
talking about.
Some of them, yes.
Okay. Are there any other behaviors that aren't on the books that you want to try to get rid of?
It's not really. It's just discourage more than get rid of.
Okay.
Especially, and that's one of them. I saw a post about a sexual act happening on an open public street
Yeah.
yesterday.
Okay.
That, again, there are things, but if we can help mitigate, and I'm just trying to give enough tools to the police department
Okay.
and them.
So that was kind of the recap of when I asked again
Yeah.
in that meeting. We tried to recap,
No, you're okay.
the
No, I know.
language.
I know because we,
We talked for a while, right?
right.
So to recap, the intent is to try to eliminate, if not eliminate, discourage, like
Right.
you said, certain behaviors such
Right.
as public urination, defecation, open containers,
Yeah.
and other lewd acts
Yeah.
potentially, right?
Potentially.
And we'll come back to lewd acts because
Yeah, it's okay.
there's an interesting point in the AMC that's still on the books that I'll address. Maybe you can revise that.
We probably
so-
can. There's
so,
probably a lot of laws. I mean, if you look at
Yeah.
some of the laws out there that are still on the books in some
Right.
other cities, there's
So-
quite a few.
Part of the intent was some of those behaviors you just said,
Right.
and the other part of the intent that you guys said Wednesday night, I think you just kind of said it a minute ago, was to try to give law enforcement the ability to enforce some of the things
Right.
that you're trying to clean up or get rid
Yeah.
of. Okay.
And I mean, everybody has, I totally understand that people have rights. They have constitutional rights.
Yeah.
I know you've touched on quite a bit of them.
Yeah.
But everybody has rights.
Right.
I have the right to walk down the street
Mhm.
and feel safe and not have to see certain things. And, well, when I'm out in public, I have the right not to see somebody whip out their, and pee in front of me.
Well, yeah. So I have the privilege, being sight impaired, to not see that.
I know, but unfortunately, I am,
Yeah,
I
right,
do have to see
right.
things like that. And
Right,
it's
but I
just-
don't think that's a right. the right.
I don't have the right not to see that.
Correct. Yeah. When you're in public, you don't have a right to dictate to someone else's behavior, right? That's not a thing. If something violates a violation of rights, right, where they're actually violating your person. Not sensibilities. Sensibilities isn't really covered in the Constitution, right? So we're talking about sensibilities, and I think that's part of the disparity that and the confusion people have is they say the same things. I have the right to not be offended. Well, not really. Sensibilities aren't, rights don't begin and end with sensibilities. They begin with actions, right, and acts that affect other person's person or property.
But just like anything else, just like with the panhandling, you have a right not to feel threatened.
Yeah,
or you have the right to not feel coerced.
Okay.
You have a right to feel safe.
Sure, but that also leads into what is, and I made that comment on one of the city council meetings, is as a blind person, and sometimes I can be pretty, not forceful, but assertive with my voice, and if I happen to stumble into your car in Safeway parking lot at 9 p.m., and I say, I'm sorry, can you direct me to the bakery? Somebody could take that as coercion or, be intimidated. One of the employees here, for example, just the other day at the finance clerk desk when we came in to submit a public records request. And there's a video if you want to check it out. I had my 10-year-old daughter with a camera and me with a form, and I asked her to process the request, and she felt intimidated. It was the words, she didn't say that to us, that was the words we got from Eric after he talked to her and consoled her. So that highlights that people's sensibilities or what they perceive as intimidation is a broad scope, right? So you can't legislate on somebody's sensibilities and say, or because of sensibilities, rather, as being the impetus for legislation.
So, in your words, and based on that, if the police want to charge somebody for assault, they can't do that?
They have to have evidence. They have to have evidence, right? And there has to be evidential proof that an assault has happened.
For intimidation or something?
For instance, when I was assaulted out here yesterday morning.
I don't believe you're insulted, but that's a matter of opinion.
No,
I mean, because I watched that video. So I'm just matter of opinion.
So the way that assault reads as an illegal term is that you have the apprehension of bodily harm or threat of bodily harm.
But then, if you felt that, then can another person feel that if they're in a parking lot or in the, if they're being approached by somebody?
Absolutely. Right, but they have to be able to verify that, right? They have to be able to articulate that, verify that, prove that. Right? So when you're talking about threat of bodily harm and that the person's capable of bodily harm, if there's a recording of a guy asking for money, and he gets upset because you don't give him money and he asks even more for money, I can understand somebody can feel threatened. So that's assault, but that's already in the code. That's your AMC 9.02.060 covers that here. So that's already there. We don't need another one for that if it's already in the AMC.
But it's, as far as my panhandling, it's it's not in the AMC that they can't approach you after you've parked your car, and they can't approach you. All of that is listed.
Right, specifically. Right, specifics.
Again, we're back to that.
Specifics. Letter of the law.
Letter of the law. Specific.
Okay. So let me kind of not necessarily shift gears, but kind of talk about. How much time do you have?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
You still good.
I'm good.
All right. So with that. Oh man, where's I going? I'm
sorry.
Totally derailed. No. If you have something you want to go.
No, you're fine.
Let's just go back to the public safety.
Okay.
So when I asked the question, and you may have seen the video on this because I posted a video on our conversation from that Wednesday's public safety meeting. I asked the question to the committee, how are these ordinances a matter of public safety? And so I think you kind of answered that listening one just now. If somebody feels threatened, right, that they're perceiving an assault.
And
right.
From my conversations with business owners as well as members of the general public, they are not going downtown because they don't feel comfortable.
Okay.
I mean, that's, they're not shopping downtown.
Right.
And then as far as the panhandling one, what spurred this for me is that people weren't comfortable going to I'm going to use two businesses as an example. It just like the Walmart parking lot and the Olympic Gateway Center and like even Safeway.
Okay.
People weren't comfortable,
some of the biggest parking lots in town.
And that's why I use that example. And especially in the evening.
Yeah.
And that ordinance does say dusk to dawn.
Okay.
And again, that's just, I want to be able to have the tools for the police department so that they can respond.
Okay.
Or if they observe something themselves, they have the tools to help.
Right. Okay, so that covers the soliciting. What about the sit-lie?
Right.
Can you explain to me about, and we're talking letter of the law.
Right.
And if you want to talk spirit of the law, you can talk spirit of the law.
I can tell you what my spirit was or my intent.
Sure. So either way, however you want to answer it, how is the ordinance on the sit-lie a public safety issue?
Because people don't feel comfortable. Because there are people down there committing acts that people are not comfortable being around.
Okay.
So again, I mean, your verbiage was the sensibility and the the rights, but it's not a comfortable environment. It's not comfortable for people to feel safe walking down the street to go shopping and getting out of their cars.
And I had a pretty positive conversation with a local friend. I'm not going to drop your name, but a local friend who shared the same concerns that you just said. Right? She said that she doesn't feel comfortable, or she even said fear. She said she was afraid to walk downtown. Right? And I asked her if she can articulate, well, where does that fear come from? What's it stemming from? And she thought about that for a minute. Because
a lot of it's perception.
It is, absolutely.
It is.
So
I mean, it is with anything.
But where is the perception coming from? And that was the follow-up question I asked her.
What'd she say?
Have she actually encountered anything? Like you said, you encountered a guy urinating.
Well, yeah.
Right? And I've asked if she's actually encountered any of these acts that we've discussed and some others, and she said, well, no. And so her perception, I asked, well, then where are you getting your perception? And part of it's from the news, from other cities where there's this stuff going on, where it's, larger cities, a larger population of people outside. Some of it's just from hearsay from other people. Oh, I saw this, but nobody's actually photographing or videoing somebody blocking a business or somebody.
I have a lot of pictures.
You do? Okay, well,
I mean, I'm not with me right now, but I can provide you or provide your people a lot of pictures.
Send it to the page. That'd be great. Yeah.
I mean, that people send me, you know, because a lot of people do have those concerns.
Okay.
But I mean, I can send you those pictures. That's great.
Yeah.
But not that's great, but I mean, that's, I'm
that
totally
you
open
have
to saving. But I mean, but it's all about that perception and that.
Hey, we're currently doing an interview on camera.
Fine.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
What's up?
Sorry.
You good? Hey guys. So give it a few minutes, right? Okay.
Hi, brother.
Yeah.
But I personally, because I was raised by military. My dad was 22 years in the Army.
Okay.
So, I personally don't have that fear.
Okay.
Because I'm comfortable telling people no.
Right.
I'm comfortable walking away from people.
Yeah.
I had a guy try to pick me up in a van in the dark alley, in between after a festival. I know. I was walking down an alley. Guy drove by me and told me to get in.
Yeah.
Okay. And I walked with a purpose and walked away from him.
Yeah.
Everybody yelled at me later, but that's me. That's my person.
And I thank you for sharing that story and that your experience and upbringing with that and your training even. So you have that training. You have that available to you, and you're the president of the city council.
Right.
So can we do public training
for personal safety?
Yes, personal safety. We do town halls like, hey, this is how you can feel safe in your own skin walking in your town. you know, you don't have to engage this way. You can engage with the person this way. And a lot of this is...
you can try. We can try.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's hard.
But that way, you see, that suggestion is a peaceful solution,
Yeah.
is education and training that the public can to kind of bring down the nerves a little bit so people are less reactive and less volatile towards people that are just asking for help a lot of times. So, but the option that you guys have chosen, unfortunately, is a violent response.
It's not a violent response.
Let me explain how it's a violent response, because I was expecting the no. No, that's fine.
No,
So the reason it's a violent response is because when you send something to be enforced, the very verb to enforce means to bring force into, right? So you're sending police officers out to bring force into situations where people are exercising their constitutionally protected rights. We can debate that a little bit. But regardless, and this was one of the points I was trying to get to when I asked you about public safety. No, you're fine. When I asked the safety committee on Wednesday, is it Tim? Is he the...
Tim Alstrom is the chair.
Okay, because we when I did the video on that, I had John Smith as the name I was working with because of that old page.
He was the gentleman who had the seat before I was elected.
So Tim Alstrom responded, and he said that it's a public safety issue when the police have to get out to try to enforce it.
Right.
So basically, if we follow the logic here, 1 + 1 = 2, the question is, what's the reason for, or the intent of the ordinance? And part of the intent is to make it easier to enforce.
Right.
And then the question is, well, what's the public safety concern? And the public safety concern is enforcement. So ipso facto, the ordinances are creating public safety issues.
Enforcement is a violent thing, no. I mean, enforcement doesn't have to be violent.
By the very nature and definition of the word, it's bringing force into a situation that can potentially escalate to a lethal outcome because they're armed with lethal force. So that's a point. If let's say with the enforcement, if somebody is approached by an officer and is given the warning, because that's the way it's worded, right? They have a warning. So they're given a warning, and the person is inebriated, is drunk as a skunk, right? And they say, okay, I'm moving along. So they gather the things and they move along. Now, can you see that as being a potential public safety issue of a drunk person stumbling around downtown in the streets, rather than them sleeping it off peacefully?
Yeah, but you can say that about anything. I mean, we can't do, drunken public laws because that's a violation, but, but that can happen anytime.
Okay.
And it can happen with anybody coming out of any of our establishments, not just a person sleeping on
Somebody
the
at a
streets.
bar, getting drunk and someone out. Yeah. I agree. I think people stumbling around drunk can be a public safety concern. But with the enforcement of that law, that encourages that to happen.
For them to walk down the street. But they can sit on a nice bench rather than lay on the sidewalk.
True. And is there a map accessible or posted on the city council or the city's web page that shows or depicts the benches in the downtown area?
I don't know.
Because that was another question somebody had. Yeah, if we can help people find it, maybe even
write a couple notes down.
Even put a map. Oh yeah, please. Even if we have a map posted in the library, right, or a pamphlet. These are the public parks. So these are the public benches. These are the bus stops, right? So there's different places you can have it in the library, have a pamphlet in here at City Hall. Potentially,
there's also an informational board in front of Pizza Hut.
Right, the community board's there, exactly. I was going to mention that, but you beat me to it.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just thinking.
You know the community boards, it's great.
I do.
Yeah, and then even potentially address, I know some of the restaurants have community boards, so you can see, hey, can we post this in some of the restaurants? I think Arby's has one and some others, where just to get information to the public, here's options that you can sit and lie down on a bench. And here's where they are.
And maybe where the parks are.
Yeah, because there's
public restrooms.
It's blowing away.
It's okay. It's not a bad suggestion.
Okay.
I'm going to write that down.
So then I'm going to... Really, I think I just have one more question for you. And it's a setup, just so you know.
Oh, it's a setup.
It's definitely a setup.
I will watch that.
Because there's a video on our page that you can check out if you haven't seen it already, when I asked my daughter out here in front of City Hall to explain constitutionality. It's titled something like "Constitutionality is Understood and Explained by a 10-year-old," right? So, in your own words, if you have notes you want to refer to, what is the purpose of the Constitution of the United States?
To protect our rights.
Okay? The rights of, when you say "our,"
yeah, the citizens of the United States.
Okay, the people.
The people. Yeah.
Okay, agree. Is there a second part of the purpose of the Constitution? Because really, actually, what you said is the second part. The amendments are to enumerate the rights. Is there a first part of the Constitution?
Just to allow us the freedom.
Okay, so I'll help you out.
Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead. So, I know you're looking for something.
No, I just want to know what your understanding is, what you're operating from as the president of the city council. Mm-hmm. So the first part of the Constitution, there's a preamble to the Constitution that you're probably familiar with. You know, we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? That all men are created equal. Right, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, right? Mm-hmm. Unalienable meaning that they can't be taken away,
right?
Okay, and that's what you're talking about, the rights of the people.
Right.
That's the second part, is the rights of the people. Between the preamble and the amendments, we have the articles of the Constitution, right? And I cited some of them on the City Council meeting on May 9th. So the articles of the Constitution lay out the formation of the government, how the government is to operate, and limitations on the government.
Right.
Okay, so it's really two parts of what the purpose of the Constitution is in basic terms, right? To limit the power and control of the government, right? And then, like you said, to empower and enumerate the rights of the people.
Right.
Would you say that that's a fair understanding of the Constitution? Okay. Now, we're also going to now look at these two ordinances, okay? So with that in mind, keeping in that same verbiage, do these ordinances empower people or enumerate rights?
Yeah. I think that they enumerate the rights of, they may limit the rights of some people who, I don't even think they limit rights. What they do is they spell out, the behavior. That's what we're trying to help illuminate.
The only behavior spelled out is sitting and lying. It doesn't, like you said, the letter of the law that's spelled out is sitting lying, right? The intent doesn't spell out the things that you're trying to address.
Yeah, but unfortunately, with you can ignore things and let them go away, and they go on forever. And
I don't think anyone's suggesting that.
Or you can try to manage what you have.
Right, and I think we agree.
Right.
I think we want to do something.
Yeah. So I'm trying to manage what we. You're fine. So my intent or my is trying to manage what we have.
Yeah.
And
I think everybody wants to do that too. I think everybody wants to. We see issues. I think everybody recognizes there are issues.
You can drive through downtown and see issues.
But it's the approach, and I think we mentioned that before. It's how we're approaching it, and the approach through legislation.
Agree to disagree.
Sure, and that's one of the beauty things about free speech, right? And so the issue with legislation is that it calls for force to be used upon the people, and when you use force upon the people, that's what enforcement is, right? It limits the people. You're literally physically, in some cases, going to be constraining people that choose not to comply with the ordinances. So do you see that is a limitation of rights? That right now
we are limiting a certain area of the city. Yes.
So certain areas, your rights are limited.
We're not limiting the whole city. They can go to a park.
Right.
They can go
but it is limitation of people's rights. What about
we're limiting certain areas.
So what about the other side, the second part of the purpose of the Constitution?
Right.
And limiting the government. Do these ordinances limit the government, or do they empower the government? Are they giving?
They're not limiting the government.
They're not limiting.
They are empowering.
They're
empowering our public safety officers.
Okay,
yes.
who are members of the government, local government.
Of the government.
Okay,
yes.
So just in that, can you see that those two things are opposed? That the nature of the Constitution and the nature of these ordinances are opposite.
Having a government is to have a set of rules that we all live by, in my opinion.
Okay,
in
your opinion. All right.
In my opinion.
All right.
We've agreed to disagree on certain things.
Then,
and I think part of that is, just like, as the legislative body of the city, we pass ordinances to give clarification and direction to our police department or our building department or our code enforcement department. You know, we're giving them guidelines, you know, to help regulate what happens in the city.
Okay.
I mean, just like when we pass a law, you know, thou shalt not murder, or thou shalt, you know, you have to have some rules in place, in my opinion.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay. So,
but there are certain things that I think we shouldn't over-regulate either.
I will refer you to, and if you want, I can send you links to help find exactly the verbiage of the stated purpose of, you know, the federal government.
Right.
There's a stated purpose, but also I think you guys have a stated purpose on your city on your city's webpage of the purpose or of the city governance. So I would refer you to check those out to see if it jives with making rules for people to follow.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, that's what legislative bodies do.
And I agree, that's what they do, but I don't think that is the intent or the purpose of government as it's spelled out in their own documentation of what their purpose is. It's what they do, but again, it doesn't match their purpose. Similar to what these ordinances, the letter doesn't match the spirit, as we're talking about. So I got one more question for you, and then I think that's it. Where do we go from here, as far as if we have, what will it take from the city council president's perspective, your perspective? What do you need from the public presented to you to try and repeal? Is there a repeal process? Like for the ordinances, how does that work?
We can make other ordinances to repeal it.
Okay.
I don't see that happening from my point of view.
Okay.
But just because I feel these are necessary.
Okay.
I really do. You know, all the research I've done and all the things, you know, we have specific behaviors and things that are happening in our city that our citizens are not comfortable with, and they need to feel safe.
Okay, so there is a repeal process, like it's just proposing another ordinance to kind of repeal it.
Yes, somebody one of the city council members would have to make that motion.
All right. And then since you said something, it just brought up one last one.
It's all right, go ahead. I'm fine.
This is kind of how it works in an interview. When you said in your research, and I know this is one of the points. Did you happen to read the Como 4 News article?
Oh,
yeah. So this is one of the points that
yeah, he twisted that on me.
That he made, and so I'm going to follow up on that.
It's okay.
Because I asked Mayor Larson out here the other day the same question.
Right.
Do you guys
I didn't see his response.
Yeah, he said basically that what you said. So the question is, do you have a database of data that you've collected, the city has collected, or city council people have collected, such as your photos you mentioned, people blocking businesses, and complaints that show volume, a number of complaints, nature of complaints, and things like that.
Unfortunately, no.
No.
See, so when I actually, after the Como 4 report, I actually went to a member of the police department and asked these questions. Yeah. Because they're really big on numbers. I mean, we're not Seattle.
Sure.
We're not the big cities.
Yeah.
We do not employ people that's all they do is data collection.
Sure.
You know, we have police officers and clerks in the city that they enter data, but they don't track that data.
Yeah.
You know, it would have to be pulled out of their system and collated by somebody, you know, individually, and that's very time consuming.
Sure. So potentially another position that could be opened up, so job opportunity people. Right?
But we've, you know, and we talked about that in or actually when I spoke to him, they had mentioned that in the police department in the past. Yeah. But unfortunately, you know, if you're looking at putting another officer on the street or hiring a data collection person, you know, in our area, putting somebody else on the street has taken precedent. Okay. You know.
All right.
But I mean, if that's something that becomes deemly appointed to the mayor or something, you know, they could put that in our budget process.
Yeah. But so you feel comfortable with legislating from an anecdotal evidence?
But it's not anecdotal.
It's not anecdotal?
To me, no. Anybody can drive down the street and see the same problems. And, you know, I get emails and phone calls and, you know,
Okay, so then from your personal perspective, and legislating from your personal perspective rather than collecting facts.
I collect facts from people, from having my fire department and my police department tell me the calls they respond to. But verbally telling me, not collecting data. So yes, that was the problem that the Como guy, had that.
Sure.
But we're a smaller city than Seattle.
So let me ask you a question about this page. Have you been following the Blind Justice page at all?
I watched a couple of
videos, things. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your overall impression of the page and people's interactions with the page? Do you think people are interacting positively or negatively toward the page?
I've seen both on your comments.
Yeah. Okay.
But you get that with anything. I mean, I get that as a city council member.
Right.
I get positive feedback and I get negative feedback.
Right. So I would say the online presence, people, has been more heavily on the negative side, right? Because we can get the data on that and crunch the numbers and say, yeah, we have more angry faces than thumbs up things or whatever.
And that's a sampling. Some people are quiet. Some people are quiet.
Absolutely,
some people are loud.
Absolutely. Some people will quietly allow their rights to be taken away. Some people won't. But what doesn't get shown, and we haven't been annotating, is all the people thumbs up in person and waving and honking and coming and having conversations like this that have been pleasant.
And I support your right to protest.
Yeah.
You have that right.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they support, I don't know them personally. I support your right to
Okay.
I'd wave at you. I'd give you a thumbs up. Just because I do support your right and your voice, you have that right.
Right.
You have that right to totally disagree with me. Anybody does.
Yeah.
I'm totally okay with that.
Okay. Well,
and I believe that you have that right. And so, but whether they actually support your message, I don't know.
Okay.
We could take a poll.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
We can ask people. You can put a poll up on your website.
Absolutely. Oh, you can. That's right. I'll have somebody do that.
You can do that on Facebook.
I'll,
just for curiosity's sake.
Yeah. There's a radio guy reached out today, too, to do an interview, so that's coming up Monday.
Who are you doing it with? A local guy?
Local guy.
Doug, probably, or Dave Haviland?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I'll give you this. This is a card that we just printed out. This is one of our countermeasures in this effort to protest that we're going to hand out to people on the street.
Okay.
So basically it says, and there's a link, there's a picture on the page, that by sitting or lying, I'm exercising my First Amendment rights of free speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom to protest. So as you notice today, I haven't had any signs out to kind of emphasize you don't need a sign to protest.
Right.
Peaceful protests have been done without signs, by sitting, by lying, by walking, marching around, right? And so it's going to be an education effort on our behalf, which is most of the page anyway, is just educating the public, helping everybody be aware of their rights.
Is that your goal?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, my goal for all this is to get people informed about a variety of topics, one of which being freedom, which is, the hat, and their freedoms and how different things limit freedoms, like we talked about these ordinances, and try to help people stand up for their freedoms and live free peaceably and find peaceful solutions. Like you talked about, you're growing up in a military family and you felt confident walking around. We can find peaceful ways to train the public on how to be confident in walking in their city. Maybe the police department can sponsor some self-defense classes, for people that want to do that. Now, it doesn't even have to be the police department. I know there's a boxing club in town, right? And I think there's another thing in the Southside Mall, right? So there's different.
Members of the public can do those things as well.
Absolutely, and
it doesn't require the city to have to get involved.
Yes,
but that's just
Yes.
But we're more than willing to help.
Right.
Just like people, I've encouraged people if they have issues in their neighborhood and they want to start a community watch.
Yes.
The police can help you facilitate that. Former Chief Torgerson was great. He would go to all the meetings, and I've heard that our new police chief has been instrumental with doing things like that in the county.
Right.
And so I'm sure he'd be really supportive.
Yeah.
And if people want to start those groups, they can reach out to us, and
cool.
And we'll help facilitate some of that stuff if they need that.
My goal, because you asked what my goal is, another stated goal is absolutely what you just said, is that it instead of shirking our responsibility as people of the community to people in legislation and legislative seats to empower the people
Right.
and let people have the conversation,
Right.
creatively come up with solutions to help the issues we see, such as some of the things we just
Right.
discussed. Putting maps out and having
Right.
self-defense classes
Right.
and other training for walking confidently and being able to articulate to somebody, no, I refuse no thanks, I don't, or I would give you $1, but I don't have one on me, I use
Right.
credit card or whatever, in a peaceful, respectful way, so
Right.
that we don't continue to incite different things, right?
Correct.
And so I think that's huge. A part of what I want to see happen is
I
private
totally
citizens
agree.
or private
Because there's
people
such
doing it.
small group, in my opinion,
Yeah.
my perception.
Sure.
Because, again, perception.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all about it. So my perception is there's a small group of people who tend to be the ones to make things happen.
Right.
Even with like community festivals and
Yeah.
such like that.
Yeah. Only a few
I
people,
do.
yeah.
I do the art walk every year.
Okay.
And I will tell you, during the art walk, I don't have any problems with anybody who's on the street.
Yeah.
With any of the people, I don't.
Yeah.
They, if they come into the festival, they say hi, I say
Yeah.
hi back, but that's me.
Okay.
But I've never had any problem.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes when there's a lot of people downtown, I don't know if they're still around. Again, they don't bother me,
Right.
and we don't have an issue. So if they leave the area or if they're around, they're not a problem.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for talking, and it's been pleasant. And hopefully we have a better understanding of what we're talking about. And if you're curious about some of the things I discussed and you want further information, I'd be happy to send you links on things.
Same with you.
Okay.
I mean, you can
Yeah.
you have my cell phone number,
Okay.
and that is the best way to reach me.
Okay.
And you can feel free to call me. And
Yeah. So
I do go to school Monday through Thursday right now.
Okay.
I'm in school in Olympia, but
All right.
then I'll always return calls
Yeah.
or texts if I can.
Cool. Yeah. So then, please follow up on the IT stuff with the voicemail.
Yes, I am. I already.
And
I've been
web page
communicating
things,
today. I
yeah.
will ask about the web page.
And I know, I think you guys do you even have IT? Somebody said you don't
we
have
don't.
IT.
We do not have a full-time IT
Okay.
person. We have a group that we
Right.
contract with
Ah,
that
gotcha.
are assisting us with our IT.
All right.
And I'm not sure if they're doing the website, but I'll find out.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask.
Cool.
I don't have a problem asking questions. And
All
that's
right.
why I always encourage people to
Yeah.
email me. Facebook, social media is kind of the devil a little bit.
Yeah.
Because so many things, you can't hear somebody's tone of voice
No,
on
yeah,
Facebook.
yeah.
And that's why I know that you said you've been getting a lot of negative comments, but
Yeah.
you can't hear their
Right.
when you sit down and talk to
Yeah.
somebody, you can hear the inflections in our voices.
Right, right. You
You
get
and I are
mannerisms,
talking,
yeah.
and we know that both of us are cool.
Yeah.
There's nothing negative going on here. So
Yeah.
I mean, we can hear that, but
Yeah.
when you get messages on Facebook, you can't. You just seem
Right. No, and I agree that mostly agree. I'll clarify that.
No, it's
That
okay.
Every conversation we've had since we've started the protest
Right.
has been just like this,
Right.
peaceful, except for the assault yesterday morning. And other than that, it's been peaceful and engaging and positive, and people listening and
Right.
dialoguing. But even what we would classify as negative comments on Facebook or on social
Right.
media, or people yelling things like "get a job" while they drive by, right? I only say it's negative in a superficial sense because I truly believe that it's another person taking the time to even click an angry face or say "get a job" when they drive by. They're taking the time to reach out to another
Right.
human being. So at a distorted level, it's there's some distortion
Right.
of it, but it's really an attempt to love another human
Right.
and connect and say, hey, please. It's a please. It's a cry for please. They're just having struggle articulating what that please is.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for coming out and sitting and
So
getting
you-
lunch break.
Do you work? A lot of people
Yeah.
have asked that.
Yeah. Oh, I do this right now. This is kind of my
Okay.
full-time gig right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of jobs are non-paid positions. A lot of businesses pay people to hold signs.
Yeah.
So, so this currently is my work, and
Are
I
you
try not to
being
talk.
paid?
Am I being paid
Uh-huh.
to
hold
do
the
what I'm
sign?
doing?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no. Yeah, I try not to talk too much about myself because that's not what I'm trying to draw attention
but
to.
people are curious about you.
Sure. And
Like I'm curious that you're a vet.
Yeah.
Right. What service did you
Army.
serve in? Army,
Yeah.
like my dad.
Yeah.
And were you stationed all over?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and the other question is, so you're a vet.
Yeah.
So why don't you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
You don't stand at the council meetings.
You're right. I don't. Well, there's a two-part answer to that, and
It was something I was curious about.
yeah, sure. No. And some people have asked me.
Have they?
Yeah, because I went to a meeting, I think with the Lions, and they do a pledge as well. I didn't stand there. So, thank you for the question. I'll turn it to me since I'm answering the question. And again, it's really goes to understanding of what things mean, right? So there's a difference between what the stated meaning is, like what the original purpose is, what things symbolize, and then people's perspective or perception of what they mean, right? So there's all kinds of songs and perceptions that the flag stands for certain things, but there are actual symbols on the flags, right? So there's stars and there's stripes, right? The stars and stripes. The stars represent the states, 50 states, and the stripes represent
the Constitution.
No,
the Bill of Rights.
No,
what is it? Come on.
There's 13 stripes, 13 colonies. Yeah, 13 colonies.
I'm all like, what?
Yeah, so they both.
Do my history lesson. I've been out of school for 30 years.
I know,
you know?
so that's why I like to share information with people,
that's
expand in understanding. So because they represents colonization. Right. It represents 13 colonies.
The original colonies.
And a colonization is an empirical philosophy, is an empirical mindset of an empire saying, we have enough control and dominance here, we need to send people out to control and dominate another piece of land.
Right.
It's colonization, right? So that's what the stripes represent, and the 50 states is an extension of that, because as there became more and more colonies, and people moved south and then moved westward, and we had more and more territories, more and more conquest of killing native people and stealing land, and that's what those represent. It's you can't kind of separate the history of where that comes from, if you actually look at it in a historical context. So I don't stand for colonization. I don't stand for taking people's land by force, because that stands
That was a great explanation.
Thanks.
No, and I totally see when you see, and then because again we talked about how I was raised, so I don't view the flag that way. I view it as a symbol of our country and a symbol of the people who serve our country. So I always stand, but but that's your viewpoint, and if that's the way you look at
it's what the symbols mean that are on the flag.
But that's the way you look at the flag, differently. Again, you have a right to have that different opinion. I was just curious.
Yeah.
But I totally get that. I totally get your your reasoning behind that.
So I think we can agree with the last phrase of the pledge, and that's liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
So, thank you again.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.